Hi, Room 9. Today we are going to be reading a story called Scissors, Paper, and Sharing. So I want you to pay special attention to see if you can find any problems that occur throughout this story and how the children are working to solve those problems. Omar and Alex walked into Mrs. Calhoun's art room. "I hope Mrs. Calhoun comes back soon," said Omar. "Me too," said Alex. "Miss Alice is a nice substitute, but it's not the same." Okay, remember, we're looking for any problems that we see. "Okay, class," said Miss Alice. "Today we're going to make a quilt." "Sewing?" said Alex. "Yuck." "We have all of this paper," said Miss Alice. "Come and grab what you want and get started." Omar raised his hand. "A quilt isn't made from paper. It's made from cloth." "We don't have time to sew," said Miss Alice. "Miss Calhoun is coming back tomorrow." "Miss Calhoun is coming back?" said the class. "Didn't I tell you?" said Miss Alice. Omar looked at Alex. Alex just shrugged. "Do you think Miss Alice told them that Miss Calhoun is coming back?" These boys look a little confused. So I'm not sure if Miss Alice did mention that their teacher, Mrs. Calhoun, was coming back. "We have to get started right away," said Miss Alice. "We want this room to look wonderful." Omar raised his hand again. "Yes, Omar?" asked Miss Alice. "Are we going to make a quilt out of paper?" asked Omar. "Didn't I tell you?" asked Miss Alice. Omar shook his head. I'm noticing a problem here. Do you guys notice any problems? I see on the last page that Omar and Alex looked confused, and it seemed like the teacher didn't tell them something, didn't tell them that Mrs. Calhoun was coming back. And on this page, she said the same thing again. "Didn't I tell you?" So it seems like Miss Alice thinks she might have already told the students one thing, but hasn't actually told them. How might that make the students feel? Confused. "Oh," said Miss Alice, "everyone will make a square. We'll put them on the bulletin board, then it will look like a quilt." "Thank you," said Omar. "Now come on and get your papers," said Miss Alice. "Hurry, we don't have much time." I noticed Omar used some very great manners on this page when he was talking to Miss Alice. He said the words, "Thank you," when she did explain to him how they were making a quilt. That was very kind of him. Suddenly, the front table was surrounded. By the time Omar and Alex got to the paper box, there was hardly any paper left. "Great," said Alex. "Mrs. Calhoun always passed out one sheet at a time. Then we had enough for everyone." "No one would act like this if Mrs. Calhoun were here," said Omar. "Poor Miss Alice just doesn't know the rules." So what's the problem on this page that the students are running into? Look at the picture for a clue. They're all trying to get the paper. And what happens by the time Alex and Omar get up there? Is the color of paper that they want at the table? No. Did Alex and Omar get upset? A little. And then they said, "Miss Alice just doesn't know the rules." Seems like they're a little disappointed that the rules in their classroom are different than they are when their normal teacher is there. Have you ever experienced that before? "What can I make with brown and yellow paper?" said Alex. Omar pointed at the poster behind Mrs. Calhoun's desk. "That poster only has 2 colors," said Omar. "But that poster isn't a quilt," said Alex. "True," said Omar. but this is all we have. I see Omar is being a very, very encouraging friend on this page. His friend Alex is upset that the paper color that they wanted wasn't available, and he doesn't know how they're going to make a quilt. But Omar is using kind words and encouraging his friend that it might not make a colorful quilt, but they can still make a quilt with some brown paper. That's very, very kind. Alex walked to the other end of the table. There aren't any scissors left either. It's a good thing Mrs. Calhoun is coming back tomorrow, said Omar. But what will we do today? Asked Alex. Omar took his paper and tore it in half. Rip! We'll cut it like this, Alex laughed. So what was the problem here? The boys needed to do what to their paper to help make a quilt? They needed to cut it, but there wasn't any scissors. Were the boys upset? Did they let that stop them from making their quilt? No. They problem solved and chose to tear the paper in half instead. You crack me up, Omar, said Alex. A Cub Scout is always prepared, said Omar. Okay, said Alex. What do we do next? We tear the paper, said Omar. Really? Asked Alex. Really, said Omar. That's what we did when Mrs. Calhoun was here. So again, these boys are using their best problem-solving skills to help make a quilt. We did? Asked Alex. We did when we made those mosaics, said Omar. I remember that, said Alex. Let's do it. Omar and Alex tore their paper into little squares. What are you guys doing? Asked Dalton. Making a mosaic, said Alex. Can I do it too? Asked Dalton. So what do you notice in this picture? There's lots of little squares like the boys were talking about. Do you remember what word they said they made with those little squares? It starts with an M. It's called a mosaic. So they tore lots of little pieces of paper in all different colors to make this creation, which is called a mosaic. Sure, said Omar. Come sit with us so we can share paper. Good idea, said Dalton. He moved his chair over to Omar's table. I'll tear this red paper, said Dalton. Here are some brown squares, said Omar. I'm almost done with that yellow, said Alex. What are these boys doing a wonderful job of doing? It starts with an S, and it's the same word that's on the front page. Right here. Oops, couldn't see. They're doing a great job of sharing. They're sharing their paper so that they have more than one color. We need a paper to glue the squares on, said Omar. We walked back to the table. There were 3 small sheets of paper left. So far, so good, said Alex. Now what? Asked Dalton. We make a pattern with the squares, said Omar. Omar put a brown square in the corner. Then he added another brown square and a red square. We have a lot of brown, said Omar. He added 2 more brown squares. This is like math, said Alex. It's 2, 1, and 2. Don't forget the yellow square, said Dalton. So, I like that the children in this story are still problem solving and sharing their cutout squares to make different colors. And Alex said it's just like math. It's 2, 1, and 2. I also notice that these squares make something else that we talk about in math class. They make a pattern. Do you remember what a pattern is? If so, tell an adult. What pattern do you see on this story? Something's missing, said Alex. Glue, said Omar. Alex looked at the supply table. There isn't any glue left, said Alex. I have some glue, said Dalton. We can share it. Thanks, said Omar. Sharing is the only way we can get this done. So what are the boys saying here? Could they get this project done if they didn't share their squares? Maybe. Would it have been as colorful and fun? No. So the boys realized that if they shared their paper and the glue and the scissors, they could work together to make something even better. Now, do you have any times when you're at home that you might have to share with maybe a sibling or a cousin or maybe even your parents? I want you to take a step back the next time you aren't wanting to share something and think, will this help everyone if I share? Could we make something even better? If you can and you remember, tell me about it. I'd love to hear about you sharing. Bye.